what's important to bear in mind with Humboldt is that he is really the last of the polymaths. And he dies in 1859, which is, I would say, very much the last moment where one person can hold all this knowledge in one head. After that, the sciences become very specialized. Scientists become experts in a much more narrow field. And that's why his influence on the sciences is not as obvious. But I think that's why he is important again today, because his interdisciplinary approach, his kind of roaming across the disciplines, makes him, in our eyes, a very modern scientist. He shapes our way of thinking about nature.
If anyone listening to this programme wants not only to read your book, but would also like to go and read something original by Humboldt, which of his many books would you say would be a good starting point?
I think there are two. One is Views of Nature, which is a slim volume in which he describes nature really beautifully, and he at the end of each chapter there are these very, very long scientific notes, which I find some of them very interesting. But to get a sense of how he writes, you just need to read the chapters, and that's how he actually envisaged this book, that the general reader should just read the nature descriptions. And then the first volume of Cosmos, just the introduction, which is about 70 pages, which very much gives an idea of how he saw nature as this kind of living organism.
This was his last work, The Grand Vision.
It took him more than 20 years to write it, and it's this incredible book where he takes his readers on a journey from Earth to outer space, from the tiniest fleck of moss to the highest peaks of volcanoes. And it's a book that brings everything together. For me, it's really his declaration of love to nature in a way.
There was so much you could discover. You could be like this Renaissance thing, discovering acres of the world and species and plants and animals.
Yeah, we've just been discussing this actually, this great romantic age of science. You saw it in Britain with people like Joseph Banks and then Humphrey Davy and then on through to Darwin, and you see it with Humboldt. And I think it is, there's always a sense of regret, I think, that now we live in an age where it's not regret's probably the wrong word, because we have a vast amount of knowledge that no one human being can get across, and it's very difficult to be in that position. And perhaps this time, around towards the 1860s, 1870s, the end of Humboldt's career, was the last time you could do that.
I think he's really the last of the polymaths. So he dies in 1859. That's really the last moment that one person can hold all the knowledge in one head. After that, the sciences specialize so much. Scientists crawl into their narrowing disciplines, and this kind of holistic view that Humboldt had is almost impossible after that.
He experimented, he gave lectures, he wrote dozens of books. He jumped so quickly from one subject to another that few people could actually follow him. And I wanted to show you a couple of his manuscripts just so you get an idea how his mind worked. For me, it was really almost like an epiphany when I opened the boxes in the Berlin archive, seeing these. So this is these are his lecture notes. So he starts fairly conventional enough. He writes down his ideas in a kind of fairly linear manner, and then he has a few ideas, and he squeezes them in the corner here and in the corner there, and then he runs out of space. So you would think, now he's just going to get another sheet of paper, isn't he? Like, no, not Humboldt. This is what he does. He starts writing his ideas on little bits of paper, and then he sticks them all on top of each other. And so you can see some of them here on the left-hand side, you can fold out. He reads something in a book, he tears out a page and kind of sticks it on there. So you end up with this amazing, multi-layered collage of thoughts, which have really no apparent order to anyone else than Humboldt. But I think what it also shows you is that not only did he see nature as a web of life, but that's how his mind worked. His mind was a web. It was not going in a linear manner.